Joining us now, NEWT Gingrich. He is a Catholic convert, former candidate for the presidency, and of course, former congressman from the great state of Georgia and Speaker of the House. He joins us now. Mr. Gingrich, great to talk to you again.
Well, it's always fun to talk to you, and I must say, when I first heard that quote, I thought it was more than a little audacious.
Well, what gives here? I mean, Pelosi, speaking as a Catholic, she's other times asked about other hot button issues, whether abortion or issues like that, and she's like, "Was as an ardent practicing Catholic, comma," and then she goes on to support the issues that, as far as I know, go against the core teachings of the Catholic Church.
Well, look, I'm only a convert, and I think she was born as a Catholic and grew up in Catholic schools, so she may well have a better understanding than I do. But I suspect if she will talk with her local bishop, she'll discover that she has a complete misunderstanding of Catholic doctrine. But I think that's the bishop's job to instruct her, not some recent convert. But it does strike me as odd. You know, I think if you represent San Francisco, and you are a very, very liberal Democrat yourself, what Obama did made you feel good. Now, if you're trying to think nationally and you look at the 61% of the people of North Carolina who just rejected the idea of changing marriage between a man and a woman, or you look at virtually every referendum that's been carried in the entire country, and you ask yourself about trying to carry states like Michigan, Ohio, Virginia, Obama just decided to put a pretty big weight on his back and say, yes, I really am as liberal as you thought I was, and yes, I really am committed to changing America as radically as you thought I was. And I think that will actually make his reelection more difficult, not easier.
Well, a new poll out, just breaking, I'm not sure who did the poll yet, but it looks like the Obama administration is seeing that its numbers are sliding on a number of measures. And a national poll now showing that Romney is up 7 points. And again, these polls don't really mean all that much at this point. But the idea that you're going to get some great groundswell through this pathway of dividing Americans, rich versus poor, I guess male, female, gay, straight, or for marriage, against marriage, rich, poor, it doesn't seem to be working. I think people just want a job. They want a better life for their children.
I did a newsletter last week on the elections in Europe, and what has to worry the Obama people, and I'm not sure they get this yet, Sarkozy's defeat in France, it was very chilling because he ran as a new person. He was hope and change. He wrote a brilliant book about France and conservatism in the 21st century, and I really thought when he went in that he had enormous potential. And he couldn't get his reforms through, and they didn't work, and the economy got worse. And what happened was a relatively bland socialist named Holland won the election in part by emphasizing how normal he was and saying, you know, we've had all these antics and all of these charismatic behaviors and all of this exhibitionism, and it didn't create any jobs. And I think Obama's got to understand that, you know, picking the Final Four may be interesting on ESPN, but it doesn't replace creating jobs. And all the various gimmicks they're using are amusing, but they fill up television time, but they don't create jobs. And if we go into October and the country says, let me get this straight, we have had the worst economy since the Great Depression. We've had more Americans bankrupt than any time in history. We've had more Americans lose their homes than any time in history. We are faced with high gasoline prices and a weak economy, high taxes, and a huge deficit. And you want us to take 4 more years of this? I think at that point he could lose by a surprising margin.
Yeah, it's a Rasmussen poll that's out. He's up by 7 points against Obama in the daily tracking. The politics of distraction and the tactics of diversion are in full operation here with this bullying story in the Washington Post. And Romney came out and he apologized if he had done anything to hurt anybody's feelings and didn't really remember the details of what happened. But do you think that it's something that he should apologize for, or does that just add fuel to the fire? How would you advise him to handle these types of issues? Because I'm sure there'll be other things like this that pop up.
First of all, somebody said to me last night, and I have not checked this myself, but somebody said last night that in one of his 2 books, Obama himself talked about bullying a little girl.
Yeah, pushed a little girl, a little African-American girl, I believe, yeah.
Yeah. So to start with the idea that the Washington Post heroically went back 48 years, interviewed everybody they could by Facebook, found that all of our listeners can ask themselves, was there any point in grammar school or high school when you did something to another student that when you look back on it, if it was on television tonight, you would not be all that happy with? I mean, did you get in an argument? Did you call them a name? I mean, give me a break. This is the kind of childish, liberal effort. And I like your term. I think we should start talking about the politics of distraction and destruction. That the two Ds are the only hope Obama has. He can't win an honest debate. He can't win on his policies. He can't win on his performance. And so we're going to see the elite media help him every day. And I think Romney's got to develop a knack for just shrugging him off and saying, I'm glad you asked me about jobs.
Yeah, I wouldn't even get into I remember, I don't remember. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not sorry. I wouldn't even get into it. You've got to do a Chris Christie on this and say, this is embarrassing. This is embarrassing for a national media. And we have Syria blowing up. We have our economy stagnating. We have wages going nowhere. We have long-term growth prospects in the toilet. And you people are going back and relocating a reporter to Bloomfield Hills, Michigan? I mean, it's an embarrassment, and I think people across party lines are sick of this type of media obsession and agenda-driven reporting. I think people are tired of it, Newt. I really do.
Well, I got the best responses I got from the public in the debates was when I was prepared to stand up to the news media and say that's baloney. And I think Romney should just develop a habit of saying, just literally cutting past their question and saying, "I'm really glad you asked me about jobs," and just say what he wants to say.
Well, and then they'll stop asking because he just won't address it.
Yeah, these people will spend all of their time distracting him if they can because they are Obama's allies and they are desperate to reelect Obama no matter how bad his record is.
By the way, there are two former McCain strategists, Steve Schmidt and John Weaver, who today in the Washington Post say that the issue of gay marriage draws attention to, quote, deep division within the GOP on this issue. John Weaver warning that the Republicans will be long-term losers if they don't soften their strident opposition to gay marriage. What's your response to those two individuals?
Well, I think gay marriage shows deep division within the Democratic Party coalition because both African-American and Hispanic communities vote overwhelmingly in favor of marriage between a man and a woman. So I would say that everywhere this has been tested in real votes, the American people have repudiated it. And yet the elites keep pounding on us and pounding on us. Hollywood keeps glamorizing it. Everybody's supposed to fall into line. The Post said it was historic when Obama came out for gay marriage. Well, they said it was historic if he had come out for marriage between a man and a woman? No, of course not, because the bias of the news media is so overwhelming against traditional Christianity and against traditional values.
Yeah, I mean, I think for former McCain people to be dictating the terms of what is and what is not division within the GOP, I find to be hilarious.
Well, I'll make a prediction right now in terms of rejecting their analysis. Mitt Romney will do dramatically better than John McCain.
Well, yeah, I think that's a fairly safe bet. And Mr. Speaker, the president, when he announced this historic evolution with Robin Roberts, personal opinion, after saying that people should not invoke his daughters in political context, he cited his daughters, and his daughters knowing people who are same-sex couples, and they're fine, and the girls are fine with it. And what's your take on that? Because it's always your parents usually guide the daughters, not the daughters guide the parents, but I guess that's what he did.
First of all, my first reaction, maybe a sign of my age, my first reaction was the Jimmy Carter moment. I remember in the 1980 debate with Reagan where Carter starts talking about how he had been talking with Amy about nuclear weapons. And the average American sitting watching this debate suddenly says to themselves, let me get this straight. The President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, a Naval Academy graduate in nuclear engineering, a disciple of Rickover, is explaining to us his conversation with his daughter about nuclear weapons. I think it just made him look foolish. And I agree with you. If Obama had said, my daughters came in and told me these things that are wrong, and I, as a good parent, instructed them on the right thing, that would make some sense. But the idea that we now have a president who, in between pandering to all of his constituencies, feels he has to pander to his children's friends, and therefore we're going to make national policy based on random dinner conversation, I think it was a sad effort to avoid reality. He did this because his donor base and his activist base would not give him any choice. They dominate the Democratic Party. It is now a party in which the gay rights movement is as big a factor as the unions, and that's just a fact.
Yeah, I mean, and look, you can't blame the gay people. They wanted this stuff, and they're pushing him, and that's their constitutional right to push what they want. And I would respect the president more if he just said, this is really important to my people and the people who support me, and I've been thinking about it, and I think they're right. And instead of going through this ridiculous gymnastics of, the daughters, and then, I mean, God bless the daughters. They seem like adorable children, but come on. That just, to me, it just seems weak.
It also told you about the modern left that he chose immediately after the people of North Carolina repudiated it to, in effect, announce his opinion, which was, of course, far more important than hundreds of thousands of people in North Carolina.
Yeah, and are you surprised that they're keeping the convention in North Carolina?
No, I'm not surprised, and I think the people in North Carolina will be hospitable and civil,
sure.
and should be. I don't think they're going to do anything unusual, but I do think that it tells you a lot about where this administration is. That the president would find it very hard in large parts of North Carolina to get a very good reception right now.
Yeah, Hollywood values versus North Carolina values. It's just that's we know where he stands. Have you nailed down your speaking role at the convention? Is there any clarity on that?
No. I talk regularly with Romney folks. I'm helping them in a number of places. I'm doing an event next week in Georgia for them, and I'm going to speak for them at the Georgia Convention next weekend.
Great.
I'm going to be with them at the end of the month in Las Vegas at a big event, and I'm going to do all I can to help them. And I want to just make clear, my endorsement for Romney is very positive and very aggressive, and both Calista and I will campaign for him. And this idea that it's a tepid endorsement is just media nonsense. But we haven't. I've told them if I'm useful, I'll be glad to speak at the convention. If they don't think it's useful, I won't speak there. That's their call. They've got
you're not
to run
doing
the convention to fit their campaign.
Yeah, you're not doing some diva thing where you're asking for white M&Ms in your dressing room or anything, are you?
Look, you've known me well enough.
I'm just teasing you.
I can get media with or without a speech. So I think they should do whatever they think is helpful to them. They've told me they want me to play a significant role both on the platform and at the convention, and I want to do everything I can to help elect Mitt Romney.
I kept thinking as this whole the bullying story and then the Robin Roberts interview, I kept thinking, I'd like to have Newt out there front and center day after day after day on this, because he speaks with not just knowledge, historical context, passion, and substance all at the same time, and I'm just delighted you came on with us. Newt Gingrich, thank you so much for joining us.